Williams at Nat Spring Training. We'll air that for you in the 6 o'clock hour, so stay with your pals. At that time, we're also now going to give you a chance to win some Wizards tickets. We're kind enough to do that for you. It's a Wizards Wednesday after all. I want to remind you that this radio program right here, we're exclusively sponsored by the law firm of Condori and Morad, estate planning, elder law, real estate transactions, probate administration. Their attorneys are always there to protect you and your family's assets. Schedule a free consultation with their team today by visiting kmlawyers.com. Be sure to let them know that we sent you. That's kmlawyers.com. Rolling through Sam Fortier's story here in the Washington Post. It's a good one. It's kind of next level. It's not just, hey, they signed this guy, he might play guard. It's the why, the where, with kind of these what they call scouts one-liners about a role a guy might have. But Tobes, the big thing, just to catch people up, is not the Lerman Tunsil's a big dude, not the Tunsil and Deebo Samuel signing, and maybe not Jonathan Jones a corner. That's a different position, but size and physicality seems to be the name of the game.
Yeah, I like getting guys that are outliers or dudes that have something that's unique, whether it's long arms, whether it's, a unique frame or something like that. Like we talked about, obviously they need to have the skill of a football player, but even just getting your depth guys to say, well, at least I have a mammoth of a human being to step in at left guard when Allegretti steps out, or, when I need to throw in someone for Biotish, I've got a huge dude, or my swing tackle is going to weigh 330 versus weighing 290, right? Like having dudes who are larger, who have long arms like Dietrich Wise rushing off the edge, different stuff like that. I like that idea. The bigger, faster, stronger, right? That's the whole idea when you get some of these dudes. They're the reserves and they're the guys that are going to step in. So I don't hate it. I think it's something that having a bigger team is generally going to help you out as long as you still get athletic guys. And like you talked about last year with the draft, that was something that they focused on, getting guys that were still relatively athletic for the size that they were and getting guys that fit what they're trying to do with the position. So I think building a foundation that way with guys that you feel like can physically impose, and I think they want to be a physical football team, it's a good thing, and it counteracts the team that was one of the most physical in the league, if not the most physical team in the league last year, that won the Super Bowl in the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
So let's put the cards on the table here. The big, what do you want to call it? The big bet or the big X factor. I wish there was a better term than X factor. But the biggest variable signing to me, as if this could be you ain't as smart as you thought you were, or my God, these guys are geniuses, is who?
Javon
Kinlaw, right? Everybody knew that right away as soon as I started bringing it up. If they're right and they've got him for a role that he hasn't really done a lot of, maybe a little bit in New York towards the end, they tried him as kind of an on-ball nose tackle. Nope. But towards the end of the season, they said, okay, maybe move to kind of a bigger defensive end role. Apparently had a little bit more success. Dan Quinn had a guy like that. This is from Sam's story, named Red Bryant in Seattle, who did a couple things. He played that big defensive end spot, and he blocked 700 kicks against Washington. Like, that's the things that he's known for his life. Like, I think wherever Red Bryant is, if someone from Washington, D.C., not state, kicks the ball, he will block it. That's FYI. But maybe that's your early down defensive end. Maybe that's kind of the role, but maybe that's a setup. Are you buying that?
I'm interested to see if they're going to get a little frisky with some fronts. Now, generally, Dan Quinn runs a lot of 4-down. That's kind of what they usually are going to major in. But I'm curious if they're going to get a little frisky with some of this stuff where you can have Newton maybe line up outside and as like a 3 technique or a defensive end and a 3-4, right? And have some of these things. And maybe you run 3 down with a Goldman in the middle, and maybe you have Payne rotate in there, and you have Kinlaw on the outside. And you've got some dudes because I think if you're looking at their best defensive linemen right now, with the exception of Dorrance Armstrong, most of them, even though I don't necessarily love the Kinlaw signing, most of them are defensive tackles. And so maybe you can find ways to configure these things a little bit differently, and maybe you do that. Who knows? Maybe you stay 4-3 and you run a big end and you say, go ahead, try and run this way to a dude that weighs 290, 300, and whatever Kinlaw was. What did he say he was listed at?
319, I think.
Yeah, 319 or whatever. Go ahead and try to run this way at this guy. I don't know, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I think they're going to be able to try some different things. This is something that I think last year that they enjoyed, having guys that they can do different stuff with, whether it was Chin, whether it was Luvu, and obviously they kind of unlocked Luvu being a second-team All-Pro. Maybe they view Kinlaw as the same sort of thing, not necessarily moving positions. He's still in the D-line, but is he inside? Is he outside?
The answer is yes.
All over the place, right? So maybe that's something they have in the plan.
And so maybe that's my thought is I'm such a this defensive tackle plays defensive tackle. I'm still in that mode, right? It took me a long time to make an adjustment to the NBA, for example, where I'm like, who's the point guard? All of them. Who's the center? 2 or 3 of them. Who's the wing? Everybody. You know what I mean? Like that, the way offenses are run, this sort of positionless 5-out type stuff. And it took my eyes a while to adjust. And you still have some throwbacks where you got to cover a Vucevic, or you got to cover the occasional honest to goodness big that's old school, but for the most part, it's everyone's away from the basket and we're diving and kicking. We're playing Euroball. Took me a while to figure that out. Maybe there's an evolution here for the line as well. You mentioned Luvu, and that's the key. When they were at their best, it was against, to me, I always put it this way, it was against offenses they weren't afraid of. When they didn't think that you could beat them, they had this feeding frenzy mentality where Luvu was basically lining up at a stand-up edge rusher spot like it's a 3-4. Like he's Kevin Green coming off the side. He's your Jerome Harrison or something like that, right? They basically said, we're coming after you. Now we're up big. We know you ain't running it. And if you do, so what? We'll come get you the next play. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe it's the 3 biggest linemen you can find and a stand-up edge, a.k.a. Frankie Luvu, as a quote-unquote blitzer, but he's not because they're only rushing 4. Maybe something to that where they're going to mix and match more than I'm thinking of, okay, here you line up next to the guard. Here you line up in between the center and the tight end, or the tackle and the tight end. Maybe there's something to that, the mixing and matching.
Well, and to your point, I mean, position flex was something that Ron talked about a lot.
Oh, did he?
And he was terrible at it.
He loved it so much.
He was terrible at it. So having a coaching staff that kind of understands, I'm going to get a fringe guy, a guy that maybe can't play safety, can't officially play linebacker, but can play a little bit of both. Jeremy Chin, right? I can't necessarily throw him deep, but I can't always play him in the box, but somewhere in between. Luvu, I can't just line him up at edge. I also can't just throw him in pass coverage at linebacker. I can do a little bit of both of that. Maybe that's what they're looking at Kinlaw, because you'd think dude that size would be good against the run. He's not. Newsflash, he's not. You'd think you could just throw him in the middle and say, okay, stuff the run and get after the passer. Well, he can do one of those things a little bit, but he can't stop the run. So you maybe have to get a little interest. This is where it's tough, though, for me, Danny, is, and this is what people bring up all the time. You have to trust Adam Peters, and that's rightfully so. He's done well. But this is where it's tough for me, saying you paid a guy $15 million for a, we hope we can. Like, that's tough, right? Like, you might have a plan, but I'd rather spend on someone that's a little more sure, but that's kind of the difficulty of free agency.
Yeah, that's part of it.
The sure part costs a lot of money.
Well, and the other thing is, and we'll jump out on this, is if there was I'll put it this way. The thing I always say about the Ravens over the years, with Ozzie Newsome and now DeCosta being in charge, is when they were picking late in the first round all the time, because they're always good, they didn't care about what you couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
They would look at Terrell Suggs, who didn't run a good 40, and go, we'll find something for that guy. We got something. We'll be just fine. And he's a Hall of Famer because they had him rush the passer. They didn't have him in space being a conventional linebacker. They ran a thing that made him really good because he could do something really well. And if you find that and go, this is undervalued, I'll go sign that. In other words, you find a cornerback that plays great bump press man coverage. Even though your team doesn't play a lot of that, you go, I don't care that he's not a great zone corner. We're going to have him play press man, or vice versa.
Correct.
It's risky to me when you haven't seen any of it from a guy. That's the Kinlaw signing to me, is I go, if he was this great run stuffer that's undervalued and you're giving him more money than anybody else would, all right, that's important to you, that's fine. Or if he was this dominant interior pass rusher that was miscast, okay, that's fine. He hadn't done either. That's the part that makes me nervous about it, is that's a big bet. And could you have gotten him for less? That's the other part. Was the market that robust where you had to do that on day one?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it right there. Where if you feel like you found something, maybe the big edge rusher is their thing. Maybe the big end is their little thing that they think they found, maybe. But it's just tough for me. I don't want to become the same just because it's different with Adam Peters. You know, we were crushing Ron because he brought in all the dudes they're familiar with. And then you look at here and